Howdy, everyone. Matt here. I got a question for you. Do you think that there is a little area that we're missing out with a percentage of our patients? Let's talk about it. All right, everyone. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt. I am Matt the PT, coming at you with another video, another topic of something in the physical therapy world. This one kind of came about from seeing some posts that friends of mine were making about a certain group out there that is kind of out there. They've been accused of some wild things, of acting like a cult where you can't question anything they do. They demonize exercises, and they think they're the greatest thing ever, and everyone's out to get them. And when people make the post to get them, they just get swarmed with all this stuff. I started looking into some things, and I don't even want to name them because I don't even want them flooding the comments and doing whatever, but I just start looking up stuff online about them, and there was a comment that was kind of coming up very, very frequently, and it kind of got me thinking about this, that maybe this is something that we're missing out really with patients, but I do see that there's possibly some limitations with it. Now, looking up stuff about if this thing is beneficial or not, there was a comment that was said very frequently across social media channels. So any different kind of social media, whenever somebody asked about this, you would see this very similar comment. Now, I will say this group has been accused of saying, well, if you're going to respond to things, you have to use our pre-approved responses. You can only use what we approve that you could say. But these comments would say, I've been dealing with insert pain here for insert pain length of time, or insert length of time. And I have tried physical therapy, chiropractic, massage, yoga, stretching, weightlifting, and it just insert these things. And it had no relief until I found blank, and that resolved everything. And seeing this comment come up over and over again, and really just like, I think that there's something there, maybe not to their methodology, but something that we could probably implement with some of these patients. Now, I will say, like I said, this group has been accused of doing those things. And if you looked at these profiles that would make it, it would often be one that had nothing behind it. There was never like a page or anything. There was never a person behind it. And the structure of the comment was always the same. It was always like, insert a body part that was in pain, insert a length of time, insert these same interventions, and insert this last thing at the end. The structure, like I said, the structure is so similar over and over again. But like I said, it made me think about this because this group says that everything they do is just the best thing ever. It can help literally everything that is out there. But people on the other side said, really, no. Because there's nothing that treats everything. And really all that you're doing is just saying, well, just don't do these like harder things. Just don't do, don't like squat. Okay. If you just never do, a squat with a bar on your back, you're not going to have any any aches or pains or anything like that. And it's like, okay, well, see, we don't have people squat, so they feel great. It means that what we do is right. It's like, well, no. And yeah, I will say sometimes squat can cause some discomfort and pain and things like that, but it's not all the time because there's a good number of people who said, I've squatted most of my life and never had a day of pain. Okay. They've also said, people have said, if you look at your workouts and the things that you do, they're not that intense. You do fairly lower intensity exercises. It's a lot of repetition in things. And so that's why people don't have pain, because they're at lower levels of stuff. They're not working at high intensity. Now, I will say maybe for most people, that's what they need, but they've tried to use athletes, and some of their athletes have gotten really just destroyed in their sport because they weren't working at high. And that's just things that people have said. But I'd see that as therapists is that maybe we're missing out on something. Maybe not with their methodology, but maybe we're missing out on really, really getting something with patients. And that is programming workouts, designing workout programs and doing that with patients, and just overall a lifestyle change. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. Now, if we look at just some of the aspects of really what they push, it's just the same things that are just guidelines that are just spoken about that people should be doing in the first place, like nutrition. There's a big aspect of what they do about nutrition is like cleaning up how you eat, not eating a lot of processed food, eating a lot of meats, eating a lot of vegetables, avoiding toxic things like alcohol and drugs, avoiding the smoking, just avoiding those things. I've had some of the people argue with me about how, I used to drink all the time. And then when I stopped, just see how it helped me. And it's like, yeah, alcohol really doesn't have any benefits whatsoever. So it's stopping alcohol drinking for anybody is going to have a benefit. But they get into an aspect of cleaning up eating. Okay, there was there. Sleeping and recovery. There's a big thing. How often do we talk about that? And they make it a very big thing in their group to really prioritize sleep and rest. Make sure that you're sleeping. I've seen the people just like posting other stuff about how they're sleeping, if they're getting good sleep and doing this. So they prioritize the sleep. They also prioritize a community. Now, it is kind of a strange community, but it is nonetheless a community, and it validates people. And that's one thing I've seen with some of these fringe ideas of stuff. I remember listening to a thing with Wim Hof years ago, and he was saying about how he's helped all these people, doing this when this failed. And it was like, well, was it really the method that you were doing, or was it the fact that you're just having a group of people that are just getting listened to and validated? And that's something. I mean, if we look at that thing, like, what was it, The Secret or whatever, so long ago, that was several years ago, that was on Netflix, and people talking about, oh, I've overcame this because this, and I got into this, and I got it, and it was just that they believed it, and they were just validated so much they believed that it worked. Now, things have come out to say like, well, no, it didn't actually work, but you have a community of people that really validate and listen. And that's what this group really does. And then exercise. Again, saying, okay, let's get you exercising and moving. And if you do all this stuff there, you're going to feel better. So yes, there's evidence that shows that all of that stuff is going to be beneficial, and they won't ever compare it to anything else, but take those things in general. If you get someone eating better, if you get someone prioritizing their sleep, if you get somebody, again, moving, having a community where they're being listened to and done all these things, are they going to do better overall? The answer is most likely yes. And if you're going to start designing more workout programs for your patients to do on their own to feel better, hit that thumbs up button. Back to the video. That being said, if we could really push that in therapy and designing that for some of our patients, how much better could we get people? How much could we really reach some of those populations of people? Now, really, before you get into it, I do see that there's some limitations to that. And unfortunately, I think we really have to think of how to overcome these barriers before we get into that. I mean, the first thing I was going to talk about, insurance. Vast majority of people in physical therapy, chiropractic, we're stuck with insurance. We are in the insurance model, so that insurance is the payer. People said, oh, I have this problem. I'm going to come to you. I want to use my insurance. I'm going to go to here. So what's insurance do? Well, insurance can just end up dictating so much. Unfortunately, that's just how it is right now, where the insurance says, well, okay, we're only paying you to work with their knee. Why are you doing stuff for the upper body? We don't believe that's going to help them by doing stuff with the upper body, even though it's just them generally just moving. And so we're not going to cover that. I've seen that with workers' compensation. If you ever dealt with workers' compensation, like, okay, why are you doing stuff outside of that body? They're there to only work on that body part. They cannot do anything else. So we see that limitation. Additionally, like the visits. So how often do insurance companies say like, oh, we're only going to give you X number of visits? And really, honestly, to help people with some of these more like chronic issues, these things, stuff, it can take quite a while to really get these changes going on with them. And if they have a visit limitation, they're hampered. We can't do that much because we are just stuck with that insurance model. And likewise, and I will talk about even just like just dealing with the insurance, and being in healthcare, because anytime it comes to something with healthcare, people want to go through their insurance. So as much as they don't like it, like, oh, this is something that health-wise, I want to use my insurance. And then, the insurance may not cover it or may not cover, oh, nope, I don't want to do that. So yeah, we're just kind of stuck with that. And another thing, cost. The cost of it. Again, a lot of people that we see are maybe limited in what they can pay. We look at some, people don't have disposable income. And that's something that this group really neglects to really address, because if you really see the people that talk about how great this stuff does, they're people that if we look at their social determinants of health, they're like very good. They're typically people who have, again, disposable income. So they're working outside of that rehab model, the insurance model, so they can pay the cash. They can just pay for it out of pocket. So yeah, they can just do those things. They also have stuff like food security. So yeah, you can be able to get those more nutritious foods or those other things because you have better access to foods. You also have, things like physical security, housing security. You're not around a lot of light or sound pollution, so your rest can be better. You have somewhere to go exercise. You have all of those things working for you. So it's like, yeah, that can benefit those things, but some of the patients that we see are really limited by what we do with those. With that being said, I do believe that's a big area that we could probably really lean into to help a lot of patients. And I know therapists that do this stuff on their own, that may have cash pay businesses that say, hey, you know what? I designed this with patients and I have them working on their sleep and their nutrition, and I'm doing all that stuff with them, and they're seeing a real big benefit to doing all of that. But I can see it's very hard to implement that on the other end. That if you're working in these larger clinics, that you're just backed up with patients, that you have patients waiting to get in, and that your schedule is full. Are you going to have the time to really sit with these patients and really work through all of this stuff? How are you going to really get them to buy in at home, to understand, yes, you need to be sleeping. Yes, you need to be eating this certain amount of foods, working with these other things. But again, they can have those limitations themselves. They may not have access to the things, or the safety, or just all of those things. You see that it's such a much larger issue. But like I said, I really feel, again, with this group, for as much as they say, it's like, you're not really taking away from what we do. You're just getting a percentage of people that, no matter if anybody could do that with them, if you just designed exercise programs and worked with them and you just validated what they said, they probably would feel better. But maybe that's something we really need to look into as well. Finding a way that these things could be covered and that they can be just done. Maybe that's bringing trainers in to say, like, okay, I work with you as a therapist. I'm going to pass you off to this trainer to really work with you and to have these things and to feel better. But anyway, I want to know your beliefs, your thoughts, your opinions. Please share that, all about that, down in the comments. Do you think that there is a way to really do this, even though we're dealing with insurance, or outside of that cash pay model? Do you really think that there's a good way to implement that, to get really people to buy in, to really go after the sickest of the sick people, the ones that really, really need this stuff, to help them? Let us know. Let me know down in there in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a copay or anything like that. And until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your patients. I'll see you then.